Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Keeler, and I'm the rector of Trinity Episcopal Church in Washington, and it is a great privilege to be with you here today for this program. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that all lives deserve to be celebrated because every life is remarkable in its own beautiful and complicated ways. Thus, the celebration of any life is no small undertaking. But I also imagine that all of us gathered here today can agree that Nol Putnam's life was remarkable in some unique and truly special ways. And so, on behalf of Nol's family, profound thanks for being here to celebrate and remember the life of the dear to us and extraordinary Nol. Let's begin with a simple prayer. Gracious God of many names, faces, and expressions, we give you great thanks for this opportunity to gather here today to remember and celebrate the life of Nol Putnam. We are deeply grateful for his life and all the ways it touched our own. We are grateful for his extraordinary talents, creativity, and curiosity. We are also grateful for Nol's example of engaging the world and the people around him to make lives better, hearts bigger, and minds brighter. Continue to strengthen us to be, like Nol, beacons of hope and understanding in this complicated world. Open our hearts even wider to the beauty of creation and the friendship of our neighbors. Give us bold minds to find creative connections and solutions where they are needed most. And guide all of our efforts that they may be expressions of your divine beauty, love, and peace. Amen. Next, I invite you to just sink into this Buddhist chant that was chosen with great care and attention, and even as you are called to participate in the chant. Is Chris Bird in the house? Come on up.
The Piece of Wild Things is a poem by Wendell Berry, who is almost exactly the same age as Nol. He wrote this poem in the mid-60s at a time when things were rather upset and troublesome. It seems we have been there before. When despair in the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
I know all of you brought your singing voices today. So what we would like to do is invite you to stand if you can, and we're going to sing 2 verses of Simple Gifts. Tis the gift to be simple, tis the gift to be free, tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, we bow and we bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn, will be our delight, and turning, we come round right. 'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, we bow and we bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn, 'twill be our delight, by turning, we come round right. Thank you. Be seated.
Hello, I'm Casey Bosch, a friend of Nol's. I think we all are. Nol was one of the first people I met when I moved to Rappahannock 30 years ago. Instantly likable. As a neighbor, we became friends. I learned he was a blacksmith, and I mentioned in passing my need for a small metal plate. The next day, while I was cooking dinner after dark, he showed up at my door with the perfect piece. He was that kind of neighbor. Long before Facebook and other social media, we had RapNet. It was a great place for social commentary and connecting. Unfortunately, it turned ugly with politics. But Nol would casually drop in with stories about holidays, family traditions, growing up in New England, or bits from his teaching days. He was a storyteller. I loved his writing and created a folder on my computer where I saved his work. Later on, I learned Mary Oliver was a favorite poet of his. Sadly, a PC crashed, lost that folder. They say things on the internet are forever. Maybe those stories are out there somewhere. Who knows? What I do know is that no computer crash will ever take away memories that I have of Nol. Sorry. This Mary Oliver poem was one he liked. It's called Coming Down Out of the Freezing Sky, with the steps of light like an angel or a Buddha with wings. It was beautiful and accurate. Striking the snow and whatever was there with a force that left the imprint of the tips of its wings, 5 feet apart, and the grabbing thrust of his feet, and the indentation of what had been running through the white valley of the snow. And then it rose gracefully and flew back to the frozen marshes. To lurk there, like a little lighthouse in the blue shadows. So I thought maybe death isn't darkness after all, but so much light, wrapping itself around us as soft as feathers, that we're instantly weary of looking and shut our eyes. Not without amazement, and let ourselves be carried as through the translucence of mica to the river. That is without the least dapple or shadow, that is nothing but light, scalding, aortal light, in which we are washed and washed out of our bones. Mary Oliver. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Sherman Willis, and I'm going to read an excerpt to you from Nol Putnam's unpublished memoir, which he titled Learning to Dance. He wrote a lot of it while he was in a workshop in our kitchen, my kitchen, with Miranda Hope and Jane Livingston, and a lot of people who are in this room. So the story, this is an artist's memoir, and if I could just, maybe I can just, is this better? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any one of us who has ever danced with Nol at the various county frolics over the years remembers the physical joy that he got from moving his body to music. He could express his romanticism, his charisma, his sexiness with abandon. This is an excerpt from his artist memoir, Learning to Dance. The setting is in a farmhouse in Litchfield, Connecticut, where he grew up with his sister Toni, surrounded by his parents' bohemian friends, artists and intellectuals. And he describes himself at the time of this story as a young lad of 18. He had wonderful formal diction. He's definitely a Bostonian. My mother loved giving occasional dance parties. Out came her favorite music, dance tunes from the 1930s on 78 RPM 10-inch vinyl records, Jambalaya on the Bayou, the Tiger Rag, the King Porter Stomp. These were exceptions to classical music, which usually wafted throughout the house, except on Saturday afternoons. That was reserved for my grandmother to listen to the Metropolitan Opera at full volume, ensconced in front of our 5-foot-tall combination Victrola and radio. The top lifted up to reveal the turntable and needle arm, which cleverly folded on itself so as not to damage the stylus. The front doors opened to reveal 2 knobs, one on-off, and one to change the celluloid dial, AM only, FM being a distant and perhaps unknown dream. Mummy loved to dance. Not classically, but more for the sheer joy of movement. And we did too. There were days when she decided that the living room had not been dusted adequately by the Johnson sisters. Tony and I enlisted, armed with voluminous dust cloths, Manuel de Fala's 3-cornered hat wafting through the rooms with the volume cranked. We probably raised more dust than removed, dancing over and on the sofas and chairs, cloths in hands, trying to keep time with de Fala. In later years, we had dance lessons. They were awful. More like military formations choreographed by a drill sergeant in gloves. Boys lined up on one side of a huge room, girls on the other, also in white gloves. We were led through foxtrots, sambas, tame waltzes. It was Mummy who took me in hand, along with the Victrola and Richard Strauss, to teach me the Viennese waltz in our front hall. Even in dungarees or shorts, it seemed sweeping and majestic. So on this spring evening in 1952, friends had assembled. Mummy suggested I come and bring my new girlfriend, Rusty, instead of going to Clamp's, the local hamburger stand, to hang out. I'm sure she wanted to meet this new and first real love of interest of mine. In true adolescent fashion, when the dancing started, we moved to the darkest corners of the front hall. There was plenty of room. Our house was long, 2 stories and an attic high, all strung out along the dirt of Lower Churchill Road. Traditional Connecticut farmhouse, it flowed from the front stoop, back through the kitchen, to the woodshed and out to the barn, so that in the dead of winter one need not step out into the snow. From the west, our house started with the woodshop, then the laundry, the back hall, and into the kitchen, a little jog into the pantry, think bar, then through the swinging doors and into the little living room. This room gave way to the house, which had the Victrola and room to dance. Mummy had no hesitation pulling men onto the dance floor. And soon almost all the adults were moving to the beat. As Rusty and I moved in the shadows, someone tapped me on the shoulder. Trained as I was, I stepped away from Rusty, ready for her to be whirled away. Not at all. Sandy Calder, yes, that Alexander Calder, creator of mobiles, stabiles, an ingenious miniature circus made of wire, scraps, and cloth and wood, transformational artists of the 20th century, also devoted to motion, by the way. A man who lived to share his exuberance of life, gathered me into his arms, held me tight, and with a mischievous smile, whirled me away. Around and around we went into all the corners of the living room, the dining room, the front hall, back into the living room. More and more of my parents' friends joined us, all of us laughing. Even Van Wyck Brooks, if any of you have heard of him. Yes, that Van Wyck Brooks. Bow tie, white shirt, jacket, tall, white haircut, short, and brushed back into a drill sergeant's flat top. Essayist, Pulitzer Prize winner, a defender of the romantic writers of the 19th century and the oh-so-modern 20th. Impeccably correct, standing Ranrob straight, but instead of his usual dour visage, even that Van Wyck Brooks was smiling in his corner. I was filled with a kind of self-conscious but irrepressible delight. High-stepping, Sandy and I circled, probably throwing in some Cossack embellishments I'd learned from Ivan, my best friend, and a Russian. Wonderfully lost in the craziness of the moment. It was that physical exuberance that Nol would bring into his art. As he moved through the space of his forge, from the fire to his anvil, hammering the pliant metal into a shape and making it dance.
Hi, everybody. This is a song by Lasse de Sela. She's a Canadian singer-songwriter, no longer with us, but someone who is really important to Nol.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm not Catherine Bennett. I'm David Nathan. As many of you know, teaching at Lenox School in Lenox, Mass. During the 60s was extremely important to Nol. As he wrote, the fraction of my life that I spent teaching at Lenox remains both the hardest time of my life and the period of which I am most proud. Bruce Clarkin, class of '65, was one of his students and became a very close lifelong friend. He was invited to speak here today. His immediate reply was that he would be honored. Sadly, his health then prevented this from happening. Next up was a fellow classmate of Bruce named David Curry, also a former student at Knowles, happened to be the headmaster's son. And he has written a few words instead. He also is having a knee replacement soon, so he was unable to come. And at first, Catherine was going to be the proxy, but I, a few days ago, wrote an email and suggested that I would be coming. I didn't know that Lenox was going to be a part of the speaking arrangements. So she asked me if I would back clean them for this group of Lenox boys. And I'm very humbled and happy and honored to be able to do so. So I'm going to be reading David Curry's words, and then I'll add a little bit of my own. So David Curry writes, Nol was sent to Lenox School for Boys in the 9th grade by his mother in 1948. Lenox was an Episcopal boarding school in Lenox, Massachusetts. Nol left Lenox in 1952 for further education and to do service for his country. When that was complete, Nol returned to Lenox as a master who would do his best to mold boys who would pursue the school motto, to serve and not to be served. He filled this role from 1959 until school closed in 1971. Nol was ahead of his time in his teaching methods. Those were the days when a teacher stood at the front of a room and spent their period lecturing or working at the blackboards. The students were in rows of chairs. My friend Bruce Clarkin writes, Nol had a classroom in the bowels of St. Martin's, our main building. There was a thick oval table at which we all sat. At the beginning of my first year, Nol asked a fellow student what he was reading. The student recited what he was reading for English class and history class. Nol shouted and said, "No, I want to know what you are reading for you." Nol leaped onto the table and began firing questions at all of us. Never again were we to darken his classroom's doors unless we were reading a book for ourselves. Nol's students became readers like him, and it served us all our entire lives. It became clear that Nol was not satisfied if we simply became good students or even excellent students. Nol's goal was for each of us to become responsible and informed citizens. So each Sunday, Nol required us to read the New York Times Week in Review. And then Nol hammered his point home with a quiz each Monday morning. Nol found a way to relate to all of us. In the dining hall, Nol's table was a favorite because of his knack for humor, his entertaining conversation, and his occasional sarcasm. Lenox boys were required to play a sport every weekday. In the fall, Nol could be found on the JV soccer field as a coach of the boys that were on his team. There were many other choices for sports to play. Apparently, while in the service, Nol had spent some time driving bigger service vehicles. So Nol often drove the team bus if another coach didn't quite feel comfortable doing that. Lennox School also had a very good drama club. Nol became the leader of the stage crew. During his time as master at Lennox, Nol fashioned many sets for various productions. I wanted to work with Nol in that capacity. So did I, and I got that opportunity. So he welcomed me and others to his stage crew and taught most of us how to use the hand tools of the time. Lennox was ahead of its time as the school population was quite diverse. Around the middle of the 1960s, American Indians started attending Lennox. Nol became a mentor for these boys. Nol told me, quote, "I went to meet the bus on a set day. A boy came off the bus and he was carrying a bag. I asked him where the rest of his luggage was, and I was told that it would be there in a few days. A couple of days later, Nol was standing in the dining hall, and the boy showed up in just a shirt, no sport jacket. I'm wearing the Lennox outfit today. Suddenly, he said to himself, 'How stupid am I?' After lunch, Nol took the boy to the local store and bought him what he needed. In 1971, the school closed. Lennox boys were finishing their further education, starting their work careers, starting families. Eventually, some alumni got an association formed and started having reunions each fall. When the class of '65 got together for its 50th reunion, a few of the class members started sending weekly emails, checking on each other. Eventually, Nol got wind of what we were doing, and he asked to join in. A couple of years later, some of us decided to return for a reunion. Nol joined us in the motel where we were staying for the weekend. Bruce Clark, David Curry's friend, writes, "On Saturday late afternoon, we opened a bottle of Nol's favorite red wine, a Côte d'Ivoire, a highly drinkable, yet humble family table wine." And doesn't that sound just like Nol? We were into the second bottle, and Nol was telling us the magnificent gates that he had constructed for the National Cathedral in Washington, the 6th largest cathedral in the world. I told Nol that his acclaimed ironwork gates were not his finest accomplishments. Nol looked at me with his trademark furrowed brow and with deep puzzlement. "Nol, I dare say, your best work was and is the boys of Lennox School. We are your life's work and finest accomplishment." Always gracious, Nol was touched deeply. With tears rolling down his cheeks, he pulled me close and thanked me with a powerful blacksmith hug. Nol taught us it was all right for us to express our emotions, including crying, tears. Near the end of the pandemic, our Sunday group was fortunate enough to have a member who worked in the technology field, and knew how to set up a Zoom meeting. After a couple of tries, Nol caught on to what needed to be done, and we started having our monthly meetings. We mostly stayed away from politics, but one time Nol was upset enough about what was happening on the Supreme Court, either what they were not doing or what they were doing, as it turned out. Nol then read a letter that he had written to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And in Nol's style, written in pen, he told him how to do his job. These Sunday meetings lasted about an hour. About 3 months before the end of Nol's life, we were having our monthly meeting. Nol was in attendance and sitting at his desk. Whatever the conversation was about, Nol just got up, walked away, and came back with his glass of wine, and we continued talking. This, an image that will stay with me for the rest of my days. Nol, the master of us all, but sitting right there, acting much like he was a classmate. As the person who started our group, as David Curry, I found that the rest mostly waited for my Sunday contribution. After reading the paper on one particular Sunday, I sat down at my computer to write my Sunday message. Already in my mail was an email from Nol. He started off by telling us it was 1:30 in the morning and he was in the hospital. He went on to tell us that he felt he was in good hands, and one individual had even made him a very good cup of tea. Right to the end, Nol found ways to praise people. When I was cleaning out what was left of my mother's possessions that she had saved right into the nursing home, I found a report card that Nol had written about me. Again, Nol was very positive. As Lennox boys, now some of us are even men, we were so fortunate to reconnect with Nol for the past decade. Nol was a valuable member of our group. Nol, we love you, and we certainly miss you a lot. I'm sure that we have all shed more than a few tears at your passing. I want to thank you for all you did for me, to learn not only what the textbook of American history could teach us, but also all those other lessons we learned from your example. In the classroom, on the soccer field, on the stage crew, at your dining table, and in your dorm. These United States needs many more men just like Nol Putnam. On my desk sits an anvil that Nol made for various shows where he would sew his crafts. I look at it and it reminds me of the hard work that's required. I intended to go to my oldest granddaughter. I hope I live long enough for her to mature so I can tell her all about Nol Putnam. The American, the man who lived the Lennox motto, to serve and not to be served, the teacher, yet friend, the man who taught us to work hard. So those are the words of David Curry. And now, if you'll indulge me a couple more minutes, my words. I want to tell you a story or two about my most recent memories of Nol. I visited with Nol in the fall of 2021 while I was a trailing spouse as the chair of Foxcroft School. Many of you may know the Foxcroft School just down the road in Middleburg. Nol kindly invited me to visit his studio. It was wonderful to see his barn full of designs and samples of ironwork commissions, as well as the hand tools and power machines. It reminded me of his stage crew shop at Lennox, but on steroids. Nol noted, regrettably, that blacksmithing was strenuous and dangerous work given his age, and that he would likely be closing the studio in the next year or so. Nol knew it was time for another step. Over tea in his nearby house, I reminded Nol of a small world story that many of us probably share. I told him of a fellow Hamilton College classmate of mine. My classmate was an art major who fell in love with glass blowing. Quite a few years later, while looking for a house and a studio in Western Massachusetts, this famous, well-established glass artist found the perfect property in Shelburne Falls near Greenfield. When I revealed to Nol that my Hamilton's classmate name was Josh Simpson, Nol enthusiastically said, quote, "You know that he bought my house. In fact, when he came for a showing, I stayed around to meet him, as I had already collected a few of his pieces." Indeed, I did know of this wonderful coincidence from Josh. And when I saw Josh at our 50th reunion at Hamilton, we talked about Nol as both a talented blacksmith and a wonderful human being. In April 2022, Nol was excited to come to Foxcroft to visit with me during the school's alumni weekend. I introduced him to the head of school, as well as a few of the board members, telling them he had been my teacher who inspired me to pursue American studies and a career in American art and museums. They were all fascinated to hear of Nol's journey from a prep school faculty member to a prime mover in attracting diversity in the student body with Blacks and Native Americans to then a renowned blacksmith. One Foxcroft trustee from Charleston, South Carolina, was particularly interested to know that Nol recently gave the commencement address at the American College of the Building Arts in that city. Nol kindly shared his commencement address with me, and with his permission, I shared that final paragraph to our fellow alumni in a newsletter. I think it sums up Nol's living and teaching philosophy that inspired so many of us Lennox students. Quote from Nol: "So here I am at 87, standing before you, still learning, still exploring a few of the ancillary roads that have appeared before me. God help me, I have barely scratched the surface. Life is tantalizingly short. Live purposely, make weird friends, live richly and honestly, love deeply, open yourselves to the world as the beautiful and talented human beings that you are." And Nol was a great teacher, a great mentor, a great friend, and a great man. My life is blessed to have had Nol in it for nearly 60 years. Thank you.
Hello to each of you. Can you hear me okay? I'll try this. Okay. Is that better? Okay. I have a quiet voice. My name is Drew Alexander. I'm a full-time artist blacksmith, and Nol's family asked that I would present on behalf of blacksmiths and myself. And I'm going to read to you something that I wrote 2 days after Nol passed, as I think it sums up Nol's kindness, his character, and the relationship that I had with him and how he was a mentor to me. A tribute to Nol Putnam. Throughout our lives, all of us are influenced by others. Some people influence us to be better humans. They challenge us to try difficult things. They help us find ourselves. We call them mentors. Nol was one such mentor to me. Here's the story of how I came to know Nol and how he played such an important role in my life. How Nol Putnam, the artist, influenced Drew Alexander, the artist. This story is also exemplary of Nol's kindness, teaching spirit, and desire to see the art of blacksmithing carried forward to new generations. June 16, 2007 was a hot day in late spring, the day that I first met Nol. The Shenandoah Valley Blacksmith Guild hired him to spend the day teaching at their annual picnic. I was 19 years old, not yet married, and full of eagerness to learn everything I could about ironwork. Nol was youthful and charming, at 73. All I knew of this man was that he was known for having built 3 large iron gates for the National Cathedral in Washington. He spent the day demonstrating methods of forging leaves and specifically using steel punches to incise veins and texture to the leaf. He combined traditional blacksmithing methods with repoussé tooling and techniques. It was inspiring the way he made metal move. I took pictures and made sketches of his tools and promptly went home and made my own. The small metal can of punches that he used stood as a symbol of craftsmanship for me for many years. I wish that one day I would own one of my own cans of punches, each of them with their own special use that only I knew, carefully dressed and polished for work. My leaf forging immediately improved, and afterwards I taught others some of these methods. 10 years went by, and I did not see Nol. Though I often thought of that day, I thought about the steel can of homemade punches that he had. I thought of what I had learned, and I wondered if I would see Nol again. In 2017, I attended the Boone Pasture Party in Central Virginia. This used to be an annual event for blacksmiths to rendezvous and learn from each other. As soon as I arrived, I heard from friends that Nol Putnam was there. I found him sitting in the shade by the book table with his wolf dog Jack, discussing books with the late Judy Berger. Judy had started the only book publishing company to exclusively publish blacksmithing books, Blue Moon Press. I approached Nol and expressed to him how I had cherished the memory of that day a decade before, and that I had continued to use some of his methods. I asked Nol if he recommended any books that I should buy. He said if I could only buy one book, I should get Early American Iron by Albert Song. Of course, this book was the most expensive on the table, but I did not hesitate. Since then, I've referenced this book for inspiration and knowledge frequently. Nol asked me if I needed any wrought iron. He was selling some and invited me to come out to his forge. I said I would, but you know how life gets in the way. I regret that I did not. In 2018, I ran into Nol again at the Urbana Artist Blacksmith Association of North America conference in Richmond, Virginia. I spotted him being led across the field by his walking stick and his dog Jack. He was easy to spot. While most blacksmiths wear bib overalls or thick cotton t-shirts, Nol preferred a bright yellow, loose-flowing linen shirt, pink linen drawstring pants, and sandals. In retrospect, he was the only sensible man there because it was around 100 degrees that weekend. He was not only stylish, but comfortable. He again invited me to come up to his shop. Afterwards, we talked on the phone many times, but I never made the trip. Life gets in the way. I cannot really begin to explain how much I regret this. After our meeting at Urbana, Nol and I began corresponding on social media. We chatted quite a bit, and he began following my progress as an artist closely, occasionally chiming in with sage advice which I coveted and heeded. We developed a friendship, if only through long-distance phone calls, emails, text messages. February 27th, 2022. I called up Nol and went to visit him at his home to see his forge. I did not realize at the time that this was one of the best decisions I'd ever made. We hit it off right away. While I was there, he mentioned he was planning to sell his shop. He wanted to sell the entire collection of tools to one person, but not just anyone. He wanted the shop to go to a young artist blacksmith that would cherish the work that went into the collection and put the tools to use, carrying on his legacy through the tools. He asked me if I would consider buying the shop. The opportunity came at a pivotal time for me, as I just left my job the previous October to begin blacksmithing full-time. There were many tools that I needed. We negotiated over the next few weeks, settled on an agreement. Over the next year and a half, I made a total of 15 trips to visit Nol. The first thing I collected was that metal can of punches he had the first time that I met him. Most of those trips to his house meant that we stopped for tea and talked about life around the table. Sometimes he took me out to lunch or I him. A couple of times I brought my wife or children along, and they would share in on the conversation. I made the most of my time with those 15 trips. They were full days, packed with hours of conversation, reminiscing about where he got some of his tools and advice for living. In between, it seemed I called him every day or emailed, soaking up all the knowledge that I could. I documented everything, dates, names, advice. It seemed I knew that my time was limited. I just did not know how much. On one of the trips, I brought along a camera, and Nol graciously sat for a 3-hour interview in which I grilled him on his life story and blacksmithing career. One of the added perks of buying Nol's shop was that he entrusted me to all of his remaining job files, many shop sketches, photographs, VHS tapes, and drawings. I soon realized that a great burden and honor had been bestowed upon me to become a curator of some of this legacy for the blacksmithing community. I did the interview to fill in some of the gaps should I ever decide to write a book one day, something Nol was happy to bestow his blessing on. In May of 2023, I celebrated with Nol and his close friends his 89th birthday party. We held it at the new house he was building for his retirement. A week later, Nol and I met an old client of his to look at a potential job. The plan was for Nol to design it and mentor me as I built it. A 10-foot-high iron and glass doors for a church. I noticed Nol was not himself that day. He was highly disoriented, slightly disoriented. I'm glad I gave him a hug. It was the last time I would see him. 3 days later, he checked himself into the hospital. It started with pneumonia. Then we found out he had lung cancer. Then his kidneys failed him. A sober cloud of reality sunk into my heart that I would never see him again. I called to say goodbye. I could tell he was exhausted mentally, but he was glad to hear from me. He said, "Thank you," several times. I was told by others that it brought him great peace that his shop and story were with me. I think that had something to do with the thank you. He also shared with me in joyful tears that a recent public television documentary about his life had won some independent film awards. "You deserve it. More than anyone, you deserve it," I told him. 3 days ago, at the time of this writing, Nol left us. His last words, "Let's get this show on the road." He was ready and at peace. One could not ask for a more fulfilling life than he. He touched so many people. He was the epitome of creating beauty every day, building for the future, sharing knowledge freely with others. Our relationship was brief, but it feels like I knew him forever. He was a surrogate grandfather to me in many ways, filling a space in my heart that only Nol could. A connection to generations past that I may never get back. I loved him and I will miss him. Setting proudly on my writing desk beneath a black and white photo of Nol is a humble metal can of punches, that seed of inspiration in memorial. Goodbye, Nol.
Now I'm starting all choked up. I'm Kathy Bennett, Nol's friend, Nol's niece. I don't know if I can hold, if I do this. Oh, my hand is shaking. Sure. So what can I say that will truly and wholly capture Nol? I write a lot, but this was a tough assignment, and the muse stubbornly remained on vacation for months. And then finally, I accepted two thoughts. I can't truly and wholly capture Nol, but I could record my thoughts, my dreams, and when he came to me in random moments, in the form of quick notes, similar to his sketches made prior to committing to Iron, and hope that it would coalesce into a finished project, to a finished piece. And I could follow a piece of advice he once gave me: just take a deep breath and jump in. Trust the process, something he did with his writing, his art, and of course, his living. This will not be perfect, but Nol would say that it's perfect in its imperfection. Because it comes from the heart. I hope you think so too. So, Nol, the teacher, responding to questions not with an answer, but with a thoughtful comment or another question, leading the conversation ever onward in an endless loop of thought-provoking discovery, skillfully questioning one's truths so as to shed light on untruths. The student, questioning his own truth, seeking answers, dialoguing, grasping for expression through art, through writing, through dreaming. He took many a wrong turn, but he did his best to learn the lesson, and that is what set him apart from many. The activist, the fierce courage not to accept, but to challenge, to work for change, never any thought of sitting back. There was always work to be done. The artist, with life by delving into his heart, mind, and soul to forge his own path, with iron by creating pieces of art, beauty that elevated and inspired. The intellectual, a voracious reader, a prolific writer, an analytical thinker. The philosopher, seeking wisdom and enlightenment about life and about himself with grace, humility, and humor. Now, while all those parts of Nol are true, I haven't yet mentioned the overarching part of Nol, and the one that is the common experience of everyone here, Nol the friend. The friend, a generous spirit who believed in connection and building a network of caring, who drew you in, made you feel recognized, heard, safe, respected, and enjoyed, even celebrated. Right? I mean, really, who has so many friends? No. In Gaelic, Anam Cara means soul friend. Anam for soul, Cara for friend. And that's what Nol was to so many. A soul friend who acted as a teacher, a companion, a spiritual sounding board. Friendship with an Anam Cara provides a space where one can belong without pretension, where one can just be themselves, where one can release oneself into the trust and shelter of another soul. When we are blessed with such a friendship, fear morphs into courage, emptiness into plenty, distance into closeness. I know that many of us here and from afar were blessed to have Nol as their Anam Cara. Did Nol have any Anam Caras? A few, and Jack was one. As many of you know, Nol had a sidekick, a partner, and a devoted friend in Jack. his large, wolf-like dog, they were inseparable. And so Jack, too, must be remembered and celebrated. Heads up, I'm not going to get through this part without crying. Maybe you'll cry with me. Strong in mind, independent in spirit, an intuitive and clever problem solver, a resolute yet kind demeanor, and a serious commitment to his job of watching over Nol in their domain, including the refrigerator. After our last visit, having said our goodbyes to Nol and to Jack, having gotten into the car, Jack appeared from around the corner of the house, trotting purposefully straight to us. I got back out of the car, knelt on the ground, and waited. He leaned into my chest with his head, then pulled back and looked directly into my eyes while I gently rubbed his shoulder. We spoke. Then he turned and walked to the front steps where Nol was standing. We knew Jack had told us something important, something that we mere mortals would not understand until later. That Nol was ill, that it was the last time we would see either of them. That scene of the two of them standing on the steps will be with us forever. Just 5 weeks later, Nol left. Jack took up vigil. As the days turned into weeks, he continued to wait, to walk their path between house and forge, steadfast in his loyalty and hopeful in his heart until his own death 5 months later. There are those once-in-a-lifetime truly great dogs that make your life oh so much better by virtue of their presence in it. Jack was one of those dogs for Nol, his own car. And we can take comfort that they're once again together. Sand mandalas are ancient, sacred Tibetan Buddhist works of art, painstakingly created single grain by single grain over days, weeks, or months. The exquisite and complex geometric patterns and colors represent a perfect universe and a map to an enlightened soul. They are destroyed shortly after completion by being cast into water to emphasize the impermanence of life and to disseminate the healing power of kindness and compassion to all beings. Nol lived a similar process, building his life grain by grain, seeking to discern the map, striving towards perfection, knowing that, like the rest of us, he would never quite get there, never quite finish his mandala, but that he could make the world a better place by creating beauty, practicing humility, advocating for change, supporting his friends, and of course, by wearing scarves and flamboyant colors. The portion of Nol's mandala that he did create is now cast into the water, disseminating kindness and compassion to the world and to us. Thus, Nol is, in a very real way, right here with us today, and always will be. We were blessed to be grains of sand in his mandala. Now we collectively have the privilege of carrying his example forward and of disseminating kindness and compassion to one another and to the world in his honor. As Nol once wrote, be brave, onward. And now, for part 2, I invite my cousin Kate, Nol's niece, Tony's daughter.
Hi, now it's Nol's turn to speak. Kathy and I are going to read quotes collected from his memoir, his writings and correspondence. We hope they make you smile. It is fall in the Piedmont. The early parts of the day are done. Dogs walked, notes made in my journal, perhaps a fragment of a dream. Breakfast made, eaten and washed. I stepped from the door across the lawn, across the first of the 3 bridges, through a spot of the woods to the forge. I opened the door, stand on the threshold for a minute to take stock. It is dark inside, the corners indistinct, the actual forge inert, the heart not beating.
Can you pause for just a second?
Yeah.
Let's try something.
Okay.
Your words are so beautiful, and I want to make sure everybody can hear.
I was thinking of getting that microphone. This is, hello, hello? Hello? Any better?
No better?
No. How about this microphone? Hello, hello? How about your microphone?
Let's just see. Let's try that one.
Hello, hello, hello? Hello, hello? Thank you. I step from the door, across the lawn, across the first of the 3 bridges, through a spot of the woods to the forge. I open the door, stand on the threshold for a minute to take stock. It is dark inside, the corners indistinct, the actual forge inert, the heart not beating. If the day bodes well, sunny and not too cold, I throw open the front doors, huge panels of wood mounted with great L-shaped hinges and moving on bronze bushings, so a touch of the finger may open them fully. Now, light floods the interior of the building. The layout tables, the workbenches, the tool racks all stand ready, all seemingly anxious to begin. The final step is to light the fire in order to awaken the building. Crumpled newspaper, yesterday's coke for the kindling, green or raw, soft coal around the edges, and like magic, the firelight playing against the walls, the tools, the crane, reflecting up and back against the massive chimney, the dance of the anvil, or dance around the anvil, is ready to begin. The forge is alive.
And on a lighter note, made my first apple crisp of the season this week. It disappeared rather quickly. Making another this afternoon, I may get brave enough to go for a pie. Heard the crust is tricky, though.
To move forward is to have faith in yourself, to have conquered your fears once and thus knowing that it may be done again. The act of creation is an act of faith and trust in oneself. I just need to jump, to trust what I cannot yet see beyond the veil, to find my way again, yet again, inside the labyrinth inside of me.
Had to go to the dump today, arrived at the height of a storm and got drenched, washed all my sins away.
Just got your morning update. Wish I could fly to your side, hold your hands, look at the leaves unfolding, drink some coffee or tea, talk or not talk, mention those old and exceedingly random thoughts that blast through the brain, signifying nothing, holding you close.
Our new governor has mandated new history standards for high school. History is being revised or ignored. I'm going to request a copy of the revisions and see if I can't make a little noise. Somebody told me the other day that I still have work to do. Maybe this is it.
In 1984, I would get a crash course in the business of architectural smithing. Can you make a curved staircase for a Georgian-style house? Without batting an eye, I replied, of course. In fact, I had no idea of how to proceed. In retrospect, fools step in where angels fear to tread. Between the phone call and the visit, he had decided to expand the scope of the job to include the front and rear balconies and a small garden gate to the venue. So much iron, so little experience. My first architectural job, I was awed, I was scared, and I got the job.
At the blackboard after school, I had to write, "I will not throw snowballs at the school," 100 times. I got the bright idea of using the chalk holder that made lines for musical notes. Aha, 5 lines at a clip. Caught again, and the night's homework was writing, "I will not throw snowballs at the school building" 500 times and turn it in the morning.
Fascinating watching Jack as he gets older. Deafness seems to have made him stay closer to me. In the house, he has his favorite spots, preferably in the basement on the cool tiles. If outside, he finds the coolest spot from which to watch me, keep an eye on me. When I go to the new place, he makes the rounds of the edges of the property, at least one swim in the creek, but never more than 5 minutes of not visually sighting me. Interesting to watch as we really age together.
I want to learn to ride a bike again. Help.
At the desk or anvil, I must force the mind to exert control. Who is in charge here? In order to stay with the task, I must summon both strength and courage to continue moving the hand and pen in conjunction with the mind, or hammer with the plan. If the thoughts peter out, the iron cools. I need a cookie, maybe milk or tea too, or that's enough for now, or worse, and often easier, that's good enough.
Thinking about a new book, 5-year-old Nol, a rabbit, and a hedgehog.
I remember classes in college where in the course of a lecture, the professor might mention 5 or 6 books which we might consider if we really wanted to understand the foreign policy of Great Britain leading to World War II via the Memorandum of Haldane. These were whole books, not essays in some irrelevant journal, no, not mimeographed excerpts, page 231 to 236, rather whole books that conveyed an argument or a conclusion based on details. How quaint.
Had a wonderful meeting Friday with an artist friend, a few years younger, also at the end of her career and facing all the questions of retrospection. What did I accomplish? What did I do or regret or not doing? Do I still have something to say? How best to say it now? Each question worthy of an essay of exploration. Still work to do.
I try to follow 2 rules: to write the truth as I know it, and to write from my heart.
I taught others to use language as an opening and not as a baseball bat. To speak your truth in words that others could understand and hear, and still have room to disagree, being respectful of the other, listening to divergent views.
I am ready to sign any petition to get rid of most of the administration, all Republican senators except Romney, followed by transferring the entire Republican Party to a small, deserted atoll subject to very high tides.
Reconnecting from those Lennox days 60 years later is both a miracle and a testament to love. Cynics might say, simply lasting this long. I call it a privilege and an honor. Here we are. God bless us, everyone.
I am keeping the jungle back and slowly, slowly regaining some flower garden. Garlic crop is beautiful, cukes are starting, green beans next, freshly dug potatoes are a meal unto themselves.
My biggest dilemma for today is what to do about my fake Christmas tree. I went through a period of grousing because it was fake and didn't smell. Solved that by spritzing some eau de balsam around liberally. But when I got it out and up this year, 2 of the light strings didn't work. So do I unentwine the offending strings and buy new ones? Would the new ones match? Impossible to dig those little bulbs out of the sockets. And who's to know if the replacement is any good? Too late to buy a tree now, fake or real. Perhaps a green felt blanket wrapped around a wrought iron standing lamp.
There seems no place to stand in agreement from which to argue. I fear that our institutions are being so watered down that in the end they will mean neither hard choices nor signify anything that demands decency, truth. On what general agreed point can both sides stand to rebuild the nation, its institutions?
Cracked open a perfect tomato for a BLT luncheon. Really, is there any better sandwich for the height of summer?
As I write today, it is 46 years since I traded chalk in the classroom for iron in the forge. 46 years since I tried to lead, to shape, to show a way toward life for students. Perhaps the best lesson of all was to strike out into life for myself. 46 years since I walked that Berkshire hill with a view beyond my vision. I took up my father's stone hammer and taught myself to be a smith, then an artist, to give in iron voice to my life.
This was a text he sent me one day. Do I have to parboil Brussels sprouts before steaming them with bacon?
Forged sculpture transcends the usual conception of ironwork. It uses the same medium, the same tools, the same manipulations, but it has no other purpose than to gladden the heart, to make space visible, to show in a moment of time a thought, an idea, a dream of the maker. In what sense? In that sense, it is a privilege to look upon. How often are we allowed a deeply intimate view into the inner world of another person? How can we empathize, understand, or link as humans across this chasm of self?
What do I remember about the Folger Gate? 205 leaves on the front, made from 1-inch square bar, 42 centers for the flowers, 1,200 hours to create, each panel weighing 600 pounds. 4 men to carry it into the cathedral, up and down stairs towards its site, 15 minutes time. Stand it in place, dropping in the 2 pins to hold it in place, 5 minutes time. The TV crew wasn't ready. We did it for them again.
The moon last night was spectacular with the clouds, sunrise beautiful, and now at 4:30 light rain. I knew it was coming, so I did my 3 hours of mowing this morning.
And this final quote you've heard before. David read it to you earlier. It's okay, it's cool, because it's worth listening to again. So here I am at 87, standing before you, still learning, exploring a few of the ancillary roads that have appeared before me. God help me, I have barely scratched the surface. Life is tantalizingly short. Live purposefully, make weird friends, love richly and honestly, love deeply, live openly as the beautiful and talented human beings that you are. Godspeed.
Come, lonely hunter, chieftain and king, I will fly like the falcon when I go. Bear me, my brother, under your wing, I will strike fell like lightning when I go. I will billow like the thunder drum, invoke the storm of war, twisting billows spawn of dust and blood from the prairie floor. I will sweep the foe before me like a gale out on the snow, and the wind will all recount the story of reverence and glory when I go.
Spring spirit dancer, nimble and thin, I will leap like coyote when I go. Tireless in travel. When the sun comes trumpets from his red house in the east, he will find me standing stone where long I chanted my release. He will send his morning messenger to strike the hammer below, and I will crumble down uncountable in showers of crimson rubies when I go. Sigh, mournful sister, whisper and turn. I will rattle like dry leaves when I go. Stand in the mist where my fire used to burn. I will camp on the night breeze when I go. And should you glimpse my wandering form out on the borderline between death and resurrection and the council of the pines, do not worry for my comfort, do not sorrow for me so. All your diamond tears will rise up and adorn the sky beside me when I go. Do not worry for my comfort, do not sorrow for me so. All your diamond tears will rise up and adorn the sky beside me when I go.
I received a call one day from Nol Putnam, and I didn't know Nol Putnam, but he said, could he come by and talk? So I said, of course, that's wonderful about Rappahannock. So Nol came, and he had tea, and I had coffee, and he was in one of those flex parts of his life, a kind of a dark time, relationships ending, questions about life. And so we sat and we talked for maybe an hour and a half, and I realized what a remarkable person he was. But I also realized how honest his questions were. It happens to us all, does it not? Those flex points in our life. And so as the conversation ended, I knew that I wanted to know more. I wanted to see him more. But how to do it? Obviously, we could have tea. But at the same time, in my parish, there was a group that met on Mondays, and they reflected on spiritual books, but not, oh, what did the author say? But how does it speak to me? What does it ask of me? How can I be transformed? And I wasn't sure, but at the end of the meeting with Nol, I said, are you spiritual? I didn't know, and so, yeah, he said, I am. I said, I have this group of 12 to 16 people, some of whom are here, of course, who would meet on Monday morning and share about life out of these, whatever, St. Augustine, the Desert Fathers, the Desert Mothers, whatever particular book, Seven-Story Mountain. And immediately, Nol wanted to be part of it. And it was, for all of us, myself included, one of those areas where we all needed to grow. I certainly did, Nol certainly did, but everybody in the group, and there was a kind of honesty about it. It wasn't about what we thought about the author or anything else. It was, what is life and what is God asking of me? And Nol and, of course, Jack were an essential part of that. And together, the group of us kind of sorted out by the grace of the Holy Spirit what was needed for us, what was the challenges that I or someone else faced. And Nol was fully a part of that. And it reminds me, in just a moment, we will do the Psalm 23. And every one of us has a kind of dark valley, a valley where we're kind of lost. We lost a spouse, we lost a job, we lost a whatever, we lost our whatever. And we need to sort it out. How does that happen? Well, it happens often in community. And that's what we found on those Monday mornings. That's what Nol found, that's what I found. A way of sorting out. At the end of the psalm, it says God spreads a banquet before us. I don't think it's about food. I think it's a banquet of life and a banquet of honesty and a banquet of challenge and growth. But for all of us, one of the things I admire that Nol called me, he didn't know me and I didn't know him. And I admire that the honesty of the first conversation and every conversation since. And I think 'tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. Sometimes we have to turn around, folks. Nol knew that, I know that, maybe all of you know that. Sometimes we have to turn until we come down right. And then it is simple and free and a gift to be where we ought to be. And the music we're going to end with is one of my favorites. Stand By Me, and those who can sing along should sing along, because that's the core of what we do for one another, stand by one another. I feel blessed to have known Nol, and he inspired me to be honest when I'm at the flex point of my life, right? To reach out, to make a challenge. I invite you to take that example from him if you're in one of those parts of life where it seems to be going up in flames, or headed for a car crash. Make the choice that Nol made. Find the community that you need. Stand by one another, and turn until you come down right.
Father Tuck, thank you so much. I have to admit, I've never been involved in a service that starts with Native American music and then goes to Buddhist chant, where there's an Episcopal priest and a Roman Catholic priest, where there's folk music and country music, but I really like it. I think it might just be the secret to some pretty amazing stuff. What do you say? I invite you to stand now and let's say that psalm that we all know so well together. It's printed on the bottom of page 3. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup is runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Please stay standing and join in this last song.
When the night has come, when the night has come and the land is dark. When the night has come, when the night has come and the land is dark. And the moon is the only light, and the moon is the only light, and the moon is the only light. We will see. When the night has come, the night has come and the land is dark. When the night and the land is dark, and the moon is the only light we'll see. Is the only light we will see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. Just as long as you stand. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, won't you stand? Stand by me. Come on. Just as long as stand by me. Stand by me. Just as long as you stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, all the mountains should crumble to the sea. The mountains should crumble to the sea. I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear. Just as long as you stand, just as long as you stand. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, just as long as you stand by me. Just as long as you stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Won't you stay just as long stand by me. Just as long as you stand. Whenever you're in trouble, won't you stand by me? Won't you stand by me? Just as long stand by me. Stand by me. Just as long as you stand by me.
Yeah.
Stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Just as long stand by as you stand by me. Just as long as you stand by me.
Friends, final blessing, and then this service is concluded, but we hope that you stay. The slideshow that lasts over 20 minutes will stay on and run after the service. There are refreshments downstairs, and then later this afternoon at 4:30, there's a reception over at Givermont. That lasts till 8 o'clock. So this party keeps going. This celebration keeps going. Also, there's a tribute book. And that will have a link to this service so you can share it and watch it again. And now a final blessing that was, as you can understand when you hear it, a favorite of Nol's. Life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those we travel with. So be swift to love and make haste to be kind. And the blessing of the divine force, which is true and beautiful, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, bless all of us and those beloved to us this day and every day. Amen. Thank you very much.
Just